Tropical storm Sara has now formed, and the flooding rains across portions of Central America have begun. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. We're your home for Caribbean weather. Nice to see you late on this Thursday. Coming up, I've got all the newest information on now Tropical Storm Sara. The impacts are beginning for portions of the Western Caribbean. We'll look at what's been happening with the storm today, how it's going to evolve in this area the next few days, and what the ultimate impacts could be down the road. We'll obviously look at the rest of the Caribbean and the Bahamas forecast as well. As always, I'd love to hear from you guys. You let me know in the comment section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. You just want to drop a hi, say hi to our Meteo Mundo weather community. Appreciate it. Thank you to all of our established subscribers and all of our new subscribers who have found the channel recently. Okay, so we now have Tropical Storm Sara all on track. This is exactly what we expected. Look, it's not a strong storm. Winds are just 40 miles an hour. Pressure now 998 millibars as it moves off due west at around 10 miles an hour. It should begin to slow down in speed as we get into this late Thursday and especially on Friday. And this is where it's going to be sitting for what could be up to 3 days off of the coastline of Honduras. Now, few things to talk about. First of all, we do have additional tropical storm warnings that have been issued. Let's take a look at the advisory again. I can bring up the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center right here. So as I mentioned, sustained winds 40, west at 10 miles an hour, pressure 998. So the tropical storm warning now in effect for the northern coastline of Honduras from Punta Sal eastward to the Honduras-Nicaragua border. That does include the Bay of Honduras and places like Roatan and Guanaja, some of the coastal islands. Tropical storm watch in effect for the northeast coast of Nicaragua from Puerto Cabezas northward to the Honduras-Nicaragua border as well. And additional areas like coastal Guatemala and Belize and Quintana Roo potentially could fall under tropical storm watches or warnings in the coming days as well. Again, the track continues to hug the coastline of Honduras. This is the advisory for the Hurricane Center, the 4 o'clock advisory. First of all, a couple of things. It keeps Sara as a tropical storm. That is good news. Obviously, we don't want this to get any stronger, but what is bad news is the continued very slow progression, if not even just outright stalling near the northern coastline of Honduras in the exceptional amount of rain it could bring to some of these areas. It then tracks it inland over Belize beginning on Sunday. And actually the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center has Sara dissipating over the Yucatan, meaning not holding tropical characteristics as it gets into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. That is good news for areas down the road like Florida, the Florida Keys, and the Bahamas. We'll touch about how this could still evolve into early next week. Now, again, we've ripped off the 18th named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season, so Sara is done. Next name would be Tony, but I hope we never get there. And again, 18 storms, 11 hurricanes, 5 major hurricanes. By all metrics, this has been a very active season, although it's kind of come in lulls and very active periods, but certainly November here has been relatively active so far. So let's get into what's happening with the storm right now. And the heavy rain has already begun. Again, this is going to be a relatively sloppy system. Certainly some convection trying to develop near where the actual center is, but because the low-level center is going to be interacting with the coastline of Honduras basically from now through the weekend, there should be very little, if any, strengthening. This is great news as far as getting, a lower end wind event. But the damage is going to really be done by all of this rain, guys, and it's really begun already in some of these areas. I do want to point out that even well away from the center, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, we're getting some heavy rain and storms up in the Cayman Islands right now. Grand Cayman had a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust. They've had some good downpours and a fair amount of lightning. Some of that is trying to slip over towards Little Cayman and Brac for today as well. And we're starting to see some showers and storms ramp up on the western sides of Jamaica, especially near Montego Bay, so Hanover Parish on over towards the Lucy area. Big cluster of lightning just offshore right now, but I want to be clear for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, the opportunity for some of this moisture to back build into your area. It will come in squalls. It won't be persistent, but we could have several inches of rain over the coming days in those areas. But the big story will be what's going to be happening for portions of Nicaragua, especially Honduras, coastal Guatemala, Belize, and then eventually towards Quintana Roo. That, of course, includes areas as far north as Cancun, Cozumel, Tulum, and back down towards the Chechemal areas as well. So this rain is already beginning. The wind gusts in miles an hour right now, 25, close to 30 miles an hour. Take a look at some of the videos you guys have sent me. Here it is in Guanaja. Danette shows you that we're already starting to see some water collect in areas we don't want to see it here. This is a community. We've got homes, we've got businesses, we've got water already coming into areas. So we're already starting to see some urban flooding being produced out of some of the heavier rain. And you can see there's some fast moving water here. Again, community inland from the actual beaches, the actual coastal areas. Here is Henry, same island, Guanaja. Again, heavy downpours, already some water collecting there on the side of homes, and it's just coming down, guys. And these squalls are just going to get more persistent. They're going to get heavier. And then obviously we have to deal with the potential for some storm surge and obviously tidal issues near the coast. We go a little bit farther west, Key Cocker, Belize, off the coastline there. Henry sends this. And again, first of all, look at the churned up water, guys. We're already starting to see, pretty good, churned up conditions, even near the docks here in the harbors. Good squall, gusty winds, easily around 30 miles an hour. Look at the palm trees there in the distance. And then we get inland in Belize towards the Cayo area. Amanda sends us this picture, higher elevation, but you can start to see those clouds kind of streaming in, and that rain will continue to just build deeper into Belize as we go over the next couple of days. I appreciate all of my friends who send in the pictures and videos. You look in the description below, mymeteomundo@gmail.com. That's where you can send me those pictures and videos. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, places like that as well. Hey, while you're down there, do me a quick favor, like this video, subscribe to Meteo Mundo if you haven't. I appreciate the support. Welcome to all of our new subscribers. Welcome, and thank you again for all of our subscribers who have been here throughout the journey. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers. Would love to get there soon. Thank you for sharing this with your family and friends. Those who will really get some important information out of this, send it along to them. And again, of course, appreciate you guys finding ways to support us here at the channel as well. So now let's break down what's going to be happening in the next few days in this area. Again, we've talked about the very slow movement, likely with Tropical Storm Sara. You can just see again how widespread this heavy rain is going to be. So let's look at it. We'll start off with the GFS model. Look, there'll be some good downpours and there'll be some decent heavy, winds associated with that, but it's the cumulative effects of the rain, right? It's not just getting one squall here and there. It's the fact that this storm, again, is just not going to be moving over the next 3 days. We may not pick up much forward speed out of the storm until sometime early on Sunday, okay? So loading up the GFS, again, we're not going to have an extremely strong storm. Yes, the center of circulation, which you can see right here, might literally stay off of the northern coastline of Honduras, right? But relatively speaking, half of the storm is going to be over land. So not expecting this to pick up, maybe up to 50 mile an hour sustained winds. But look how elongated and sloppy this system is going to be. Here is Saturday. And then as we finally get into Sunday, a bit of a forward movement. And I got to tell you something, the latest run of the GFS really starts to have this system falling apart over the Yucatan. Still a lot of heavy rain for the Yucatan through Sunday and early on Monday. But as far as holding a low-level center that can actually get back into the Gulf and redevelop, the chance looks to be less and less. So again, it's bad news for this area. The trends of the models have been the friends for places like Florida and the Bahamas. Again, let's loop this back up one more time so you can just clearly see the evolution of this. This is going to take us through Monday. Look at the heavy rain continuing here, the broad spin, Honduras and Guatemala and Belize and Quintana Roo, portions of Nicaragua, and even, and this is pointed out with some of the comments in yesterday's video, look, there's going to be some heavier rain even towards Tegucigalpa and Managua and San Jose and Panama. It may not be as persistent, and it's certainly not going to be heavy as Honduras, but other areas of Central America will get some heavy rain out of this, if not directly, secondarily, with even some moisture coming out of the Pacific. And as I've already mentioned, If you live in places like Kingston and Port Warren, Spanish Town, and Ocho Rios and Montego Bay, in Negril and Jamaica, yes, it's going to continue to get wet. Look at Saturday. Look at the GFS model on Saturday. I mean, that is a lot of potential heavy rain for portions of Jamaica. So rain chances high the next several days, beginning on Sunday as we finally see Sara move off towards the west. Rain will diminish in places like Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, but it's not going to shock me if we get 3, 4, even 5 inches of rain in some of these areas. So 75, 125 millimeters. But the big story is going to be the amount of rain that we could see in these spots here. Guanaja, Roatan, San Pedro Sula, the higher terrain areas of Honduras, 10 to 20 inches of rain. Locally up to 30 inches of rain are plausible out of this system. All right. Let me show you the wind, and then we'll take a look more about this potential rainfall coming up. Let's see here. Let's go over to actually our fill product. Bring up the winds this way and loop it up. So this is just going to show you the sustained winds at the surface, okay? And again, the GFS model, and most of them do, the European and the Icon are in pretty good agreement with this track, and that is literally hugging the coastline. Again, you can just clearly see that this low here, we'll let it fully wrap up into Monday morning. Take just 1 second to get there. I'm not going to want to move this, but you can clearly see. All right, here we go. Look at it just kind of situate. Now, here's the situation with that, right? If the center comes over you, so let's just say if you live in Guanaja or the Roatan area tomorrow, we might actually have the true center of circulation slip right over your area. And if that's the case, you know, there is the possibility of getting some winds sustained in these areas that could be approaching 40 miles an hour or slightly higher. So I don't want to write off the potential wind even into the Gulf of Honduras and Amatique Bay here towards Guatemala. I don't want to write off the wind potential because it could be really squally even up towards Belize City, Dangriga, and the coastal areas, Kikaka, or other areas like that. But the biggest overall impacts will be the amount of rain that we could get out of this, okay? Before I show you that graphic, I do want to show you the GFS rainfall, and then we'll look at this. Once again, on this product, the GFS can only go out more than 14 inches on this legend, okay? If you just notice that we are pinging the highest you possibly can. Northern Honduras, trying to get towards coastal Guatemala, Dangriga, southern sides of Belize, potentially over a foot of rain. And this is the newest information for places like Belize and especially southern sides of Quintana Roo, 5 to 10 inches of rain, locally up to 15. Now, I do expect there to be lower amounts of rain along the coastline in Quintana Roo, the farther north that you go, but there could still be some heavy rain for Tulum and Cozumel, and even up towards Cancun. Cancun is going to be on the border to get some of the heaviest rain. It just depends on how well the system holds together. But the southern sides of Quintana Roo towards Chetumal area are probably looking at 8 to 10 inches of rain. In Honduras, again, 10 to 20 and still locally up to 30. So again, here's your rainfall impacts for these areas. And I'm not just making up these numbers. This is directly from the National Hurricane Center advisory on Sara. 10 to 20 inches, 250 to 500 millimeters, up to 30 inches of rain are still possible in northern Honduras. Okay, life-threatening flash flooding, mudslides, landslides, especially some of the higher terrain areas inland, like the Sierra La Esperanza. If you live in these areas, please check in with your local government, your local officials for any life-saving measures that you need to make based on the fact that we could have a couple of feet of rain up to 500 to 750 millimeters in just the next 3 to 4 days out of Sara as the system stalls. And for some of the island areas, a 1 to 3 foot storm surge above normal tide cycles to go along with the heavier rain. So flooding, inundation of water across coastal areas in the islands are possible up to 3 feet above high tide cycles. For Guatemala, Belize, Nicaragua, and the Yucatan, especially Quintana Roo, 5 to 10 inches of rain, 125 to 250 millimeters, locally up to 15 inches. Now, the highest chances for that will be coastal Guatemala and Belize and potentially the southern sides of the Yucatan. Nicaragua and northern Quintana Roo should be closer to the 5 to 10 inches, okay? And as I've mentioned, again, even places in Nicaragua and Costa Rica, down towards Panama, could still see some excessive rainfall as well. So that's the big story here. Now, where does it go from there? All right. The GFS models today are even farther west, burying the storm into Central America in the Yucatan. Okay. The ensemble mean of the GFS still holds a very weak system and pulls it into the west coast of Florida on Wednesday. So we don't want to completely write off the storm yet, but the trends have been your friend along the west coast of Florida and the Keys and even the Bahamas. So we could get a very weak tropical system or some kind of mid-level spin with rain coming into Florida on Wednesday. But you notice that all of these lines now are green. Higher pressure, weaker storms, the ones that were going to be hurricanes, would have had to been off the coast of the Yucatan, and the model trends have just buried it farther west into Central America. Again, this is bad news for the rainfall here, but better news down the road for Florida and the Bahamas. When you look at the intensities now, most of the tropical models keep this as a tropical storm, right? Maybe 50, 55 mile an hour winds at best, just depending again on how clean the center stays offshore, but there'll be a lot of land interaction. Now more models, right, as we get to, the 84, 96 hour time frame, which is late Sunday and into Monday, some of them really begin to just dissipate it like the Hurricane Center has. Others try and hold on and reform it a bit into the Gulf as, again, a weak system. But most never have this reaching hurricane strength, which is great news for everyone. But again, the slow movement is going to be extremely problematic for Central America. So let's take a look at the GFS model. The first thing I want to look at here actually is I'm going to take off the reflectivity. And I am going to bring on these 850 millibar winds, okay? Because again, these 850 millibar winds are basically the steering currents for the storm right now. So hopefully this thing will load up nicely, and we'll take a look at this. Once again, there is an area of high pressure building in over Florida, okay? And that area of high pressure has kept the storm farther to the south, and it's going to try and swing it eventually farther west as well. The reason why this storm at this point in time is kind of being hung up is you have this trough coming off the United States East Coast. Once again, that was trying to pull the storm east. So there's a fight, there's a tug to Sara right now to actually want to move back slightly east. And then as this high builds in, that's basically putting the brakes on the storm. So the combination of the trough and the ridge of high pressure developing over Florida is just forcing this storm to have very little movement over the coming days. Now, again, you can see here on this 850 millibar wind chart that the storm just hugs the coast, maybe meanders a little bit farther north, but never fully gets offshore. So as we look into Saturday, if we look at the winds here over Florida, notice how they're very light, but they are clockwise around that area of high pressure. As we get into Sunday, the high relaxes, it begins to move offshore. That should allow Sara to begin to pick up its northwest movement. But it's far enough west to begin with where the north turn is not going to happen over water. It's going to happen over land. And there you go. And then as we get into Monday, now all of your steering flow is out of the south. And that should eventually pull whatever this is going to be into the southwest Gulf. But again, does it hold together? Is it something that's still tropical in nature? I think it's 50-50 at best at this point in time. So let's take the GFS model and extend it out. Again, if there's going to be impacts to Florida, it's going to be late in the day on Wednesday, the 20th, right? So let's loop this up and see what happens here. All right. Let me take off these wind radii. You're going to see on the GFS model, just like yesterday, you get yourself a really sloppy rainmaker coming back into Florida, but no high-end issues with this, right? So we do hold together more of a mid-level circulation than anything else on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, a fast-moving, almost hybrid system being picked up by the cold front that's also coming through the southeast United States. And here comes some rain, maybe a little bit of squalls, central, southern Florida, the Keys, and our friends in the Bahamas. So rain would be likely for Walker's Key, Freeport, Lucaya, Abaco, Bimini, Nassau, New Providence, Andros, maybe even to the central sides here. Let me just take this out just a little bit further. We say we go into Thursday night. Loop that up. Put that into motion, and you can kind of see the tail end of this. So here it comes one more time as a wet, quick rainmaker, but nothing that's wrapped up to cause any big wind issues, to cause any big storm surge issues. So if you live along the west coast of Florida, the models have been your friends. The trends have been your friends to keep this storm weak. More of an elongated, sloppy area of rain. Could still be some decent winds, 30, 35 miles an hour, something like that. Nothing probably much more than that. Here, if we go back over to the surface winds out of this, as a matter of fact, because we can look at it, so let's do it. And I load this up. And again, this is a big difference, obviously, to compare to what we were talking about 2 days ago. But it's good news here for these areas. Now, that's the trough coming off the United States East Coast. It's going to really kick up our winds for our friends in Bermuda. And eventually, again, you just see this very elongated area of rain. I think there could be a mid-level circulation to this. And look, some of the models try and hold it together, or maybe even try and, get a very tiny low-level center here right before it tries to move back in. But it's 50-50 at best that this is a depression or a storm at this point in time, all right? And again, the Hurricane Center does not have it. But you can still see that's a pretty fresh wind field moving into West Florida on Wednesday. European deterministic model. Nice slow run of this. Tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, you'll notice again, it's just not moving. That's why we're getting all the rain here, guys. It's just not moving. Again, really slow loop, but just so you guys get the idea, it's basically stalled out through Sunday. As we get into Sunday afternoon, now we start to move inland over Belize. There's the very weak center over the Yucatan. And then again, the European does try and hold on to a very broad center right here, okay? It's not much. It's even hard to pick up on as we get into early on Wednesday in kind of the north central Gulf of Mexico, but no big impacts there. Icon model, showing you the rain on this one rather than the actual larger pressure fields. I mean, we have the center pressure, you can see that, stays a tropical storm. Here it comes. See a few tight isobars, but nothing special. The Icon and the European are actually in pretty good agreement, but look at all that rain. And look at the rain spread back over the Cayman Islands and Cuba and portions of Haiti and southeast Cuba as well. But again, mid-latitude, if anything else. Some of the higher resolution hurricane models that are running, we'll start off with the HWRF model. Look at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, max winds. It's hugging the coast. The center is just north or spinning right over Roatan and Guanaja. Look at that spin. Max winds 55 miles an hour inland towards Belize, and then off of the coast. We'll see if it holds together after that, very broad. One more time again, tracking right over coastal Honduras, basically doing a loop-de-loop over Guanaja and Roatan. The amount of rain that could fall over those areas could be record, life-threatening, and astronomical. Very, very concerned about our friends across Honduras, and then weakening after that. Here's the half-say model. Again, it's a little bit more even towards the coastline of Honduras. It just kind of bobbles back and forth. The steering currents are very weak over the weekend, so it's just not going to do much. If the core can stay offshore, it could get slightly stronger. But most of the models have it interacting with land so much, it just never fully forms. So it stays as a 50, 55 mile an hour tropical storm at most. But the life-threatening rain, the landslides, the mudslides, supremely concerned about those friends in those areas. So let's talk about the overall here, okay? If you live in these areas, you need to be on alert for direct impacts. That's Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Belize, and the Yucatan, especially along the coast for the Yucatan-Quintana Roo. Okay, some impacts for our friends in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, mainly in the form of some heavier rain. It could lead to some localized flooding in a couple of spots, and that rain would be fairly widespread through at least Saturday night. Much less likely to actually have impacts of note for South Florida, the Keys, and the northern Bahamas. I don't want to write the storm off just yet completely. But again, the trends have been your friends in these areas. I think we'll at least get some rain and some wind coming in on Wednesday. So this is the latest, my friends, on Tropical Storm Sara. I'm going to keep you guys updated on that as, of course, we go through the rest of Friday and into the weekend with these daily updates. Let's talk about other impactful areas of rain and activity across the Caribbean and the Bahamas on this Thursday. We'll start off with our friends in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and portions of the Dominican Republic and Haiti and the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. I know it doesn't look like much here, but earlier in the day, we had some heavy rainfall in portions of Puerto Rico that have actually spawned off some flood advisories for the eastern side of the island. When you look at the live radar out of Puerto Rico, that looks a lot more intense than what you saw there in the enhanced satellite imagery, right? Heavy showers continue right now for the central portions of the island, towards the Barranquitas area, back down towards Calle, Guayama, Yabacoa, on over towards Fajardo. We've had some heavier rain for Bayamon and San Juan from time to time off the coastline right now. Fajardo, Culebra, Vieques, all with the opportunity for some passing heavier downpours. Same thing for St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. It's a little bit more sparse in the Virgin Islands right now, the British Virgin Islands, mind you. Road Town, Tortola, Virgin Gorda, the Anegada areas. A little bit more concentrated over Puerto Rico, portions of the eastern sides of the Dominican Republic, but it's really been a little bit more widespread over Puerto Rico itself for today. Switch over to the visible satellite imagery real fast. Put this back into motion. Let's see here. There we go. So there's that. Let's see if we can get the viz on. Now look, the viz, obviously we're losing the visible here, but just to show you again, there is this little shear line, this axis from west to east, and a bit of instability with kind of a south surface wind, and that's why we're getting some of this rain to develop and kind of sitting over areas from time to time, leading to the flood advisory. It would be for the far northern sides of the Leeward Islands, by the way, Anguilla, St. Martin, places like that, St. Bart's, even down towards Saba and St. Eustatius in Antigua and Barbuda. The rain chance hasn't been nearly as high as areas just to the north. But again, fairly spotty in those areas overall. And we've had some heavier rain for the Dominican Republic and Haiti, trying to get some of these showers back over the Turks and the Caicos as well. It's been quieter today through the remainder of the Lesser Antilles. We still continue to have very rough sea conditions. That's the biggest thing. We have high surf advisories. We have small craft advisories as well for portions of the islands. So watch out for some of the swells coming in here. But we're drying out a little bit here. Winds will continue to be a story through the Bahamas. The near gale conditions continuing in these spots, though the rain chances the next several days will be relatively low. Let's take a look at that real quick. Some of the rain that I expect over the next few days in the areas that I just mentioned. Basically the areas that won't be directly impacted by Sara. And again, today is the 14th, so going out to the 18th is just fine. So again, obviously, Bermuda is an area to highlight for wind and rain, right? We have this mid-latitude cyclone, associated trough coming with it. If you live in Bermuda, gusty winds, heavy rainfall, likely portions of Friday and Saturday. I know there's a PGA golf tour of it going on there right now. May not be the best weather for the golfers Friday and Saturday for rounds 2 and 3. And you can start to see that spinning in. So if you know anyone playing golf on the island, let them know. The gale conditions could continue for the eastern sides of the Bahamas into the Turks and the Caicos. Haiti could be clipped by some of the moisture from Sara. Otherwise, it'll be the passing showers developing, especially on the northern sides of the Dominican Republic. Slow-moving rain could still produce some flood advisories for Puerto Rico and the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands that'll be spotty at best. Still on the far northern side of the Leeward Islands, again, Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bart's, best opportunity for some heavier rainfall from time to time. We could get 1 to 3 inches of rain in a couple of areas here. And then again, even as far north as Barbuda and Antigua, the rain chances there will not be as high as areas just to the north of those. Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, on over towards Guadeloupe, and then just isolated rain for the remainder of the Lesser Antilles. For my friends in the ABC Islands, it'll be fairly scattered as well. Don't expect a lot of rain over the weekend, though I can't rule out a couple of passing showers in your area. And then obviously, again, as we've mentioned, for other areas of Central America, back down towards Costa Rica and Panama, pockets of heavy rain continue. Some flooding is likely. Some moisture coming off the Pacific and on the southern sides of Tropical Storm Sara. So this is the European model as we take a look at the rain across the Caribbean and the Bahamas. Once again, you'll see the rain fill back in here very quickly into Florida, portions of the Bahamas with what's left over of whatever Sara is going to be or not be there. But this is the big area of concern where I've mentioned other areas that could get some heavier rain. We'll try and get a few heavier showers toward the ABC Islands, drier for the Bahamas. And again, a sliver of the Lesser Antilles and portions of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, and then maybe some of the Windward Islands, especially early next week, have the better opportunity for some of the heavier rain. Yesterday, the European model had up to 38 inches of rain in the northern sides of Honduras. Today, it's 32. Unfortunately, it's still in line with the highest amounts the Hurricane Center is talking about, that locally up to 30. Again, 10 to 20 inches, locally up to 30 possible, but the model's slightly higher than that in a couple of spots. Obviously, this trough is going to kick up the sea conditions. Small craft should be exercising caution, potentially remaining in port for the Bahamas, especially in the offshore waters of the Atlantic. Turks and Caicos as well. Watch for some increased swells for the greater and lesser Antilles. And then obviously we're going to kick up the sea conditions, including the southern sides of Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, across the Caribbean coastline of Central America, Quintana Roo, and eventually towards the west coast of Florida as well. As even if it doesn't become anything more or regenerate, there's still going to be some elevated sea conditions moving in as a cold front and trough move across the northern Gulf Coast as well. Friends, I appreciate you guys. We're not just here on YouTube. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You want to send me a picture or video, it's myMediaMundo@gmail.com. Have a specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comments section below while you're down there. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Have a great rest of your Thursday. I'm back tomorrow with all the latest information on Tropical Storm Sara and your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas. Take care, friends. I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.